Okay, we've heard a lot of thoughts and opinions regarding the Devils and their inconsistent season. But what about their AHL affiliate, the Utica Comets? Ben Birnell of Daily Sentinel Sports accompanied me on today's episode as he provides his thoughts on Kevin Dineen and his squad up in Utica, New York. There's a lot to break down alongside Ben. Buckle up, everybody.
You're Locked On Devils, your daily podcast on the New Jersey Devils, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, this is Bryce Salvador, and you're Locked On Devils with Trey Matthews.
Elliott scores! Oh, Steven stepped up, nailed him. Brodor's got the puck. What a shot. The Devils win the Stanley Cup.
Alrighty now, what is up, New Jersey? Welcome back to the Locked On Devils podcast here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, college hockey play-by-play announcer, Devils Writer of Pucks and Pitchforks, and also part-time credential media member, Trey Matthews. It is that time. It's time for our yearly discussion on the Utica Comets and their season. And who better to bring on to the show than Ben Birnell? He covers the Comets for Daily Sentinel Sports, and he is very plugged in with all things Comets. Ben, before we have our discussion, first and foremost, how are you doing, my friend? It's always great to have you on the show.
Oh, not too bad, Trey. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you making space for me to kind of chat about the Comets today.
Absolutely. We've been recapping the Devils season, their off season, what's been going right, what's been going wrong for them. But we got to update the AHL affiliate. All right. This past season for the Comets, I think it's safe to say that it was a bit of a struggle because they had a win-loss record of 32-29. They had 5 overtime losses. They had 6 shootout losses. They did not qualify for the playoffs. They finished 6th in the North Division. Basically, can you paint a picture as to what went right, but what mostly went wrong for the Comets this past season?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing was inconsistency. You'd have, some nights where they looked really good, and then you'd have a lot of other nights where things just weren't going well, and it was like maybe the offense was going, but then your defensive side and the goaltending wasn't quite there. Or it was kind of the other way around, maybe goaltending had a good night. Defensively, they were fine, but couldn't find a goal against whoever they were playing against. It just didn't seem like they were firing on all cylinders all the time. And, it seemed like a struggle most nights for them. So I think they were trying to find their way as they went. And I think after they got to Christmas, things started to maybe get a little bit better, but they could never find kind of that momentum to maybe snowball a win streak into, multiple games. So, at the end of it, come up short, missing the playoffs. And I know a lot of the guys and the coaches were disappointed about, missing the playoffs, but they were hovering just below the playoff line in the North Division all season. So they were kind of chasing things most of the year. You saw some of the other younger guys, the prospects that you hope to see at New Jersey, in the future kind of take steps. It's a tough league. So, not every night's going to be easy because they're playing against much older guys and much older competition that maybe they're not used to. So I think in that regard, there was some success there, as they continue to kind of build their game and prepare to take the next step in their pro careers.
That reminds me a lot of the Devils season because that's the name of the game for New Jersey during the 2023-2024 season, which was inconsistency, whether it was goaltending, defense, injuries, you name it. And the Devils didn't win no more than 3 in a row, but they never lost no more than 3 in a row. And I just got to ask you this. Did the Utica Comets surrender a lot of first goals to begin the game? Like there was this joke around the Devils discourse that anytime the Devils played a game, it was always 1-0 them. Did that sort of circumstance also affect the Comets in which they saw themselves trail a lot to start a game?
I don't think it was a lot. I think if I remember correctly, it maybe was like half, they would score first or the other team would score first. So I don't think it was anything I remember seeing, Devils games where the opposing team was scoring first a lot, but I don't think that was very much an issue for Utica. I think they had trouble keeping leads a lot of the times, and I think they had to maybe mature on the ice a little bit more as they went along, which is sort of weird to say when it was more of a veteran team, I guess. And so, it was, I think, a collection of things that kind of didn't help them throughout the season.
All right, so let's talk about personnel. But before we talk about specific players, something that I noticed was that the Devils prospect pool, it's been getting a lower rating as the years have progressed. And that's kind of normal for a team that is trying to compete for a playoff spot because they'll use some of their prospects to get a big name player right away. I remember talking to Mike Moriel prior to the draft that should the Devils trade away their 10th overall pick for an impactful player right away, as opposed to drafting someone and that said drafted player won't be ready for a couple seasons. Anton Salayev, he still has to spend a couple seasons for the KHL before he comes over to the States to suit up a game for the Devils. Have you noticed that the, level of talent has gone down a little bit as the Devils have gotten better? What's your thoughts on the matter?
I don't necessarily think that the talent pool has gone down. I know that the pool itself has kind of been a little bit depleted. I mean, you look at the trades this offseason with Alex Holtz and Akira Schmid and, Graham Clark got traded. And obviously you're bringing in, a young kind of prospect for the Graham Clark trade. But, Fabian Zetterlund gets, part of that Timo Meyer deal. So, you're bringing in, upper talent guys that are staying in the NHL while you're kind of losing some of those prospect guys. So, it's you don't want to have that go too low, I guess, in terms of the future. I saw that kind of when Vancouver was the affiliate for Utica before the Devils came in, and it just seemed like they were kind of giving some of their younger players away in trades and everything. And that kind of pushed the prospect pool down a little bit. So I think you got to constantly build that up. And I get that New Jersey's in a kind of a more win now, like we want to get back to the playoffs. We want to make a run. And you need those guys as well, especially with that young core that they have. So I get it from that sense, but at the same time, you want to keep building. And I think it's probably good that, they didn't push that 10th pick away in the trade and, drafted decently to kind of build up that pool again, especially, goaltending too, as they go forward.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about what the future holds for the Comets, but I want to talk about specific personnel. Who was your MVP this past season for the Comets? Obviously, Ryan Schmelzer led the team in points with 52. But is there someone else, or does he sort of fit the MVP mold for the Comets? Could you please share your thoughts?
Yeah, Ryan Schmelzer ended up being the kind of the overall pick for media MVP, and there's a few people that get a pick for that, but I went with Isaac Poulter. I thought he was a guy that kind of held them in even those close games. And I mean, he finished with 17 wins. If you look at it, you look at the other three guys that were kind of the main contributors in net for the Comets, and they combined for 15 wins. So I'm wondering, without Isaac Poulter, where do those 17 wins come from? Who else kind of steps up and does that? So I definitely think Ryan Schmelzer was worthy, but I look at it and I say Isaac Poulter had a tremendous season and kept them in a lot of games. And I do wonder kind of how things would have finished had he been able to stay with the Comets as the season went on. Late in the season, they got Schmidt and Dawes back, and Eric Shalgren's there as well. So you've already got a log jam, and you got to send a kid somewhere to play. And so they sent him back down to Adirondack, which I get from a contract standpoint and kind of maybe the experience standpoint, but from he's helped get us here kind of look. I was a little confused at the time. So I like I said, I wonder where maybe the team would have finished. Maybe they're in a playoff spot if he sticks around. It was a tough end of the season, I think, for both Nico Dawes and Akira Schmid too, kind of down the stretch. And Nico Dawes had played a lot of games by then after coming back from that hip surgery. So tough kind of way to end it for a variety of reasons.
Don't worry, there's still more in store. But before we continue with today's episode, let me tell you guys about Indeed. I've actually used Indeed before to book myself some play-by-play gigs. I highly recommend it. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, messaging, so that way you can connect with candidates much faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. Once again, I've used Indeed quite frequently, and listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support my show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, let's get back to today's discussion. Take it away once again. While we're on the subject of goalies, Isaac Poulter was on the Devils roster at one point. Nico Dawes was definitely the talk of the town for the Devils. In fact, during the outdoor game, he had to make a lot of saves against the Flyers at MetLife Stadium. And it was just an impressive showing from not only him, but the whole team in general. And you talked about his hip surgery, having to come back from that. What's it like just seeing Nico Dawes come back from having major surgery and not only suiting up in a decent amount of games for the Utica Comets, but also the New Jersey Devils? And I think the Devils were relying on him to salvage their season because goaltending was also a big issue for New Jersey. What was it like just seeing that from both perspectives?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough injury, and it sounds like he was ahead of schedule too. But at the same time, I think at first when he came back, they wanted to maybe take things slow and steady, I think were the words that he used. And then, less than 2 weeks later, he's playing a majority of the starts for New Jersey. And I get it because things weren't exactly going well at the time. So, to see him go from kind of 0 to 100 pretty quickly. That's impressive, I think, from that standpoint of getting back into it and playing games. And, it's nice to see that they trusted him to be in that role, so quickly. But like I said, too, obviously tough goaltending situation that was happening at the time. So I give him a lot of credit because it seems like it's such a major surgery, and then to go back playing as much that quickly is impressive in my mind.
Absolutely. All right. Let's look at X Factor piece. Someone who is in the middle of being like, I guess, an MVP caliber player, but still can be underrated at times. Like someone who played a big factor on the roster. Who was that X Factor piece? Someone who could change the course of the game depending on how they played.
Yeah, I kind of look at Brian Hellen and I wonder kind of what his season would have looked like had he been able to play the whole season. Coming back late in the season from that injury and the that extended absence that he was out. But I think he finished with 29 points in 35 games and had 20 goals, and just was a guy that seemed to have the offense there. And tried to do as much as he could to kind of help the team get going. He was a guy that, I think they gave him the Comets a boost, with his return. Just a physical player and brings that, hardworking mindset, and obviously doing well to score goals and everything. So felt like he was shot out of a cannon coming back from that injury. So I feel like he was kind of like that X kind of factor that could help them. And even, going into next season, I think, should there be injuries, I think he's a guy that could step up and, if he continues to be healthy and, get that chance.
Yeah, he was close to being a point per game player, appeared in 35 games, and he had 20 goals, 9 assists for a grand total of 29 points. And it seems like Brian Hallinan, at least the past couple seasons, has been a talking point at development camp and where he could potentially take his game. And we'll talk more about development camp momentarily. But moving on from an X Factor player, who was very underrated in your opinion? Someone who was good, but will never be given the credit that they deserve.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of look at it like Ryan Schmelzer, obviously led the team in points and is the captain, but I don't know that he necessarily gets the credit maybe that he deserves. I mean, he just signed an NHL deal, his first one, in his pro career. And I feel like that deserves a lot of credit, for what he's done and kind of the lead by example type that he is. And I think it's a huge deal for someone to sign an NHL deal, at this point in their career. And I think he could be a guy, should injuries arrive, that could, step in and help the Devils. And I think that's a great little story for a guy from, the Buffalo area and, plays his heart out, goes out there and just a guy that, tries to do everything he can to help the team. And, talking to him, it was a tough season just as a team. And, I think he wanted to kind of help, shepherd that team into the playoffs and, just team couldn't get there. So, but yeah, I think he's a guy that, maybe doesn't get enough credit. You look at the points and a career season like that, but I don't feel like it got maybe talked about enough. And now he's, like I said, has signed his first NHL deal and could get his first, regular season games. And, he was a guy last season where they brought him up late again in the preseason for a couple of games when they needed him. And I think that says a lot, steps in and helps out when he can. So he's been in the organization for all of his career and has worked up from Adirondack and the ECHL. And I think continues to, do everything he can on and off the ice to help the team.
For reference, for anyone who didn't know, Schmelzer signed a 2-year deal with the Devils back in April. And here he was leading the Comets in points, but I don't think enough people, like you said, Ben, were talking about him. And here I was on the show saying like maybe he could be like your MVP just because he led the Comets in points. And that's something to, not take lightly just because when you lead your team in points, whether it was a successful or an unsuccessful season, it does show a lot. But that's interesting that you see him as underrated, and it goes to show you that just how interesting this game can be and how people perceive it. So thanks for that insight. And when talking about the young guys, their time to shine sometimes is during development camp. And I wasn't at development camp a few weeks ago because I was covering the draft in Vegas, but I was there last year. And it's always nice when these prospects come under one roof and basically have like a week to form chemistry with one another and trying to put on a show and get their foot in the NHL door. When it comes to development camp, did you notice anything from afar, or is there a player that people should keep their eye out for? Because some people don't look at development camp all that serious, but I always say, like, once again, these prospects work their behinds off in order to put on a show and make a name for themselves. So when looking at development camp, do you notice anything, or is there a player that people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, I think, development camp can be good just from a standpoint of learning kind of what they want from you in the organization and how you should play. And, I think that's a good time for, those guys to get that kind of familiarity with the coaches. And so you're not like, if you come in at the end of a season and you're not just meeting someone for the first time, like Kevin Dineen or, the other coaching staff. I think it's good that, Chase Stillman had that opportunity to go there again. I thought he had a fine rookie season with Utica, obviously playing with guys older than him. And I thought he took steps in his game and, was getting better as the season went along, and then had a late injury that kind of ended his season with a hand injury. So, I'm curious to see how things progress with him going into his second season.
Yeah, people were always wondering what happened to Chase Stillman. Unfortunately, he couldn't participate in development camp last year due to injury, but we'll see how his game develops from here on out. All right, let's talk about the offseason and beyond and what you're looking forward to. What's been going on with Utica during the course of the offseason, and does it have you excited for the upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the kind of the trades and the signings that they've made with New Jersey, and kind of how there's already maybe a little bit of a log jam, both at forward and defense, to the point that, it seems like that lineup is already set. So I think it's going to push guys down. I mean, you look at, the signings like Mike Hardman, and then, Adam Beckman was part of that Graham Clark trade. I think those are probably two guys that are going to probably spend time with Utica, and they're good depth guys. So curious to see how they kind of step in and help, and maybe, help with the loss of some of the other, like Graham Clark, who was leading the team in points and everything, or in goals and everything. You've got DeSimone and, with the other kind of depth you have in that lineup up in the NHL, I think, it's possible that he comes down too as well. And then, they just signed White again, who's got experience, in the organization. So I think he's going to be probably another veteran sort of presence on the back end for Utica that'll help with the younger guys like Villain and Hataka and Masul. And you'll probably have Seamus Casey that comes down and starts his career in Utica. I think there's going to be a good mix there on that back end. And obviously Seamus Casey comes in as a highly touted prospect that I think people are interested to see how things go. So I think there's an interesting mix there. I think there are people that usually like to see maybe more AHL deals, and so far there haven't been as many, I guess, as previous years. But we're 2 weeks out from the start of free agency, so I think it seems like it's gone slower maybe than years past. But I think there'll probably be some more guys because you need that depth. Whether they start with Utica or they go down to Adirondack and maybe come up when there's a need. So I'm curious to see how, those guys that are signed to NHL deals that are probably going to have to start with Utica because of, the options that New Jersey has. So there's always change in the AHL. The lineup usually changes from year to year. So curious to see how, the new guys that maybe haven't played with some of these other guys before, how that kind of process gelling and everything works, as this new season gets underway in the fall.
Before we wrap up today's episode, let me tell you guys about FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open up the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day all summer long. So head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Visit FanDuel.com to look at the odds, and please remember to always gamble responsibly. Okay, let's finish off today's episode. Take it away once again. I'm glad you mentioned Colton White, because I've been seeing in my comment section saying you got to talk about Colton White, what he can bring. And I'm like, most likely he's going to be with the Utica Comets. I will save that for Ben Birnell, because he'll probably know about that a little bit better than I would. And Seamus Casey, a lot of people are very excited for him, myself included. I have a soft spot in my heart for University of Michigan Wolverine players, mostly because my parents went there. And Tom Fitzgerald has said, like, don't underestimate the AHL and its level of competitiveness, because that could be a good opportunity for Seamus Casey to develop his game. Unfortunately, I don't think he'll be given the chance to really thrive with the Devils, just based on the logjam of defensemen that are in front of them. And we'll definitely see what happens. But what are you the most excited for? This is my final question. What are you the most excited for this upcoming season for the Comets? Will they be better? Will they be worse? What are your expectations?
Yeah, I'm kind of curious to see how the goalie situation shakes out. I mean, obviously, the Devils have Jacob Markstrom and Jake Allen, so you're set there. So now you've got you're looking at a tandem of Nico Dawes and likely Isaac Polder. And I'm curious to see how those guys handle that kind of workload. I know they're pretty good friends already, so I feel like you've got a pretty good tandem right there. Like I said, it's interested to see how well this team kind of gels on the ice. Maybe if that's a focus early in the season, considering maybe they didn't do that as well last season. So you go back to the first year of the affiliation in 21-22 when they had the extended win streak to start the season. And, not every year is going to be like that. Every year is different. Interesting to see how, some of these younger guys step up too as well when, you've got new faces and, you're playing with different guys. So curious to see how, Daniil Masul and Santeri Hataka, come back and play as well if they end up, starting the season with the Comets. Some of these younger guys too, and Stillman. You got Philman that's making his pro debut as well, or at least that's the plan. So curious to see how some of these younger guys handle playing against older players and using that experience to their advantage.
Well, Ben, we talked everything Utica Comets. You talked about the upcoming season for them. Where can my audience find you at?
Yeah, definitely on Twitter, BB_UR Sentinel, and stories on the Comets at ursentinel.com. Try to keep up with them as much as possible, and also on Instagram under the same BBUR Sentinel handle as well. Try to post pictures from games and practices and everything from there too. So,
and keep an eye out for Kevin Dineen and the whole squad this upcoming season for the Utica Comets as they look to try to bounce back from their inconsistent 2023-2024 season. Ben, the pleasure is always mine, my friend. Thank you for taking the time out your day to do our yearly Utica Comets update discussion.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast. Thank you very much.
And like I do to close out every episode, continue to stay safe. Have a wonderful day, New Jersey. Go Devils. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Thanks for listening once again, and thank you to Ben once more.